Hi, I'm Mike Hogue of Lily House, and today I'm going to be talking about getting started with forest gardening, the best way to go about it. And from our experience, there's no one way to get started with a forest garden. Projects need to be as individual as the people who are starting them and the sites that they're being done on. With that said, there are three ways that we've seen that we keep seeing over and over again that have been successful for the people who are doing them. And the first of those is to, quote, start right outside your door, as Bill Mollison, the founder of permaculture, used to say. That's a really good strategy for people who are beginners, who are just learning about permaculture or forest gardening, maybe don't have a lot of gardening or growing experience themselves, all the way up through people with pretty advanced horticultural knowledge who might be new to forest gardening. It's also the kind of process that we'll primarily be focusing on in this class. The main point here is simply this. You put it someplace where you're going to be coming and going daily. That means you're going to be seeing it on a daily basis, or at least a few times a week. If something starts to go wrong, you're going to be right there to fix it. And also, you're going to be right there when things are ripe, so you know that you're going to be taking advantage of it, and your forest garden is actually going to be useful to you. Again, if you're seeing it, you're going to be successful. The second strategy that we see a lot is to start by building out on an existing planting, especially of an already existing fruit trees. A lot of people have apple trees or pear trees or something like this that they're not really taking advantage of because they have a lot of health problems and they're not maintaining them. Adding in a forest garden around this can actually improve the quality of that planting and improve the quality of the yield, making sure that that planting is already useful to you. So it's a really great way we can start to build out and build a forest garden around something that's already started. This is especially good if that tree planting or planting is already close to the home, because again, that's so important for beginning. So if it's not close to the home or someplace where you're passing it every day, a sidewalk on the way to the car, something like that, then we suggest that you actually start your first forest garden planting someplace that's going to be a bit close to home, because that's going to be the best way that you can learn about forest gardening and the best way to ensure your success. The third strategy that works well for people is to start with a comprehensive design that designs the whole property and designs a strategy for how to transform the property into a complete forest garden or permaculture site. This is especially good for people who are designers, or people who want to hire a permaculture designer, or for people taking our complete forest gardening class, because that's the process that we go through in the complete class, a complete process designed for your entire property for transformation. But ultimately, Bill Mollison was right. Even then, once you start implementing that plan, often the best place to start is going to be right outside your back door. But with all three of those processes, the actual implementation is going to be the same. So let's go through that really quickly now, and later as this course goes on, we're going to walk you through all of these steps. So step one, you choose a site. That's going to be the best place to start, is to choose where you want to start. The second, you need to analyze that site. This step is probably the most important thing for ensuring your success, making sure that the plants you're planting are going to thrive in the place that you put them. So this is especially true for understanding the aspect or how much sun the site gets, whether it's full sun or part sun or full shade. You really need to know that and pick plants that are going to be appropriate for the conditions you actually have. Second, you need to look into the soil pH, or the soil acidity. We can get into that a little bit too in this class, but the main thing you know is that if you don't know the soil acidity, you want to go out and buy a test and test that soil acidity. And finally, knowing something about the soil texture and whether or not it's well draining ends up being really important, so look into that as well. And in these class materials, you'll see a link to some resources that you can use to make those determinations. Next, the third step is to choose your plants. Choose high-value, low-maintenance plants that are going to be favorite things that you're going to want to eat, but that also are going to get a yield for you without a ton of extra work. That is really key, really important, and we'll be getting into that in the next units. A really good starting for planting is going to include a few fruit trees, 1 or 2 fruit trees at least, a few fruiting bushes or berry bushes that are going to be high value to you, some perennial vegetables and herbs that are some of your favorites maybe, or some things that are going to be really high value and useful to you, and especially herbs for cooking, teas, and medicines. Alliums, your onions and garlic family plants, tend to be things that go into almost every meal, and they're going to be really high value in your first forest garden right outside that back door. Then we're going to go in and choose supporting species that are going to work together to take care of our plantings and turn them into a complete kind of ecosystem that we call a guild. And we'll talk about the basics of designing these plants into a guild later on in this class. In step 4, we'll prep the soil. Typically, in permaculture, one of the common ways we'll do this is called sheet mulching, and we'll get into that and some alternatives to it later in this class. And finally, decide where your plants should go, and then plant them for step 5. So there you have it. Remember, the principal strategy that we're going to be advocating for in this class is to start with a small area. Get it really right so that it pops like a forest garden should. You get that low maintenance going on then and there, then move on to the next piece of property and transform that one as well. That way you can walk the dog around the site, transforming things in a way that is going to be low maintenance for you and easy to care for, and you're going to be getting yields from it starting right in year 1. A lot of people can do this by just picking some areas, doing them where they feel good, and slowly transforming the property in that kind of way. But ultimately, we believe that the best way to transform a site like this is to actually do a comprehensive permaculture design and use that permaculture design technique. So for people who want to do that, I recommend the book Gaia's Garden as a companion to this online course. It will walk you through that entire process and show you how to transform your property. Another thing you can do is get in touch with a local permaculture designer or your local permaculture community. And finally, you can always join one of our complete forest garden design classes, which will walk you through the permaculture design process on your site. Or even get involved in our community-supported forest gardening program, which also gives you some site consultation and gives you all of the plants that you'll need to get your forest garden collection started. Thanks. Stay tuned for the next video.